The numbers are in, and they're massive. The US-Africa Business Summit has shattered previous records, closing an astonishing $2.5 billion in deals and commitments. From energy to infrastructure, tech to trade, this summit isn't just about talk, it's delivering real, bankable results. Washington is clearly stepping up its engagement, and Africa is no longer just a market, it's a priority.
This summit is an opportunity to interact with the private sector. It is critical for governments to be involved in a healthy partnership.
What's driving this surge in investment, and what does it mean for the continent's future? This story was first reported by the Africa News Agency. Let's get into the details. The deal momentum. The 2025 US-Africa Business Summit is rewriting the playbook on international investment, hitting a staggering $2.5 billion in deals, a new record that signals deepening economic ties between Washington and the African continent. Investors, CEOs, and government leaders poured into Washington, D.C. this spring to stake big claims in sectors ranging from agriculture to technology. Just last year, the summit closed around $1.8 billion, making this year's total a roughly 40% increase, an impressive jump that puts Africa at the center of global commerce. Deals span fintech startups in Nairobi, renewable energy projects in Ghana, and infrastructure bonds in Nigeria, with several agreements anchored by U.S. development finance backing. Numbers like these don't happen overnight. They reflect years of steady engagement, but they also underscore a sense of urgency. The geopolitical environment is shifting. Europe and China have been active players in Africa for years, but now U.S. business leaders are stepping in with fresh capital, a renewed strategy, and a determination to catch up. Some of the recent deals involve a $200 million tech fund backing African entrepreneurs, a $150 million pact for solar power across West Africa, and a $50 million investment in digital agriculture designed to reduce food insecurity. Together, these deals indicate that African markets are not only ripe for investment, they're demanding U.S. participation. This torrent of activity suggests we're witnessing an inflection point in U.S.-Africa relations, where economic ties aren't just diplomatic talking points, they're living, breathing outcomes with numbers that matter. High-impact sectors. Across the summit's 20-plus deal announcements, 6 key sectors emerged as especially dynamic: renewables, agribusiness, fintech, infrastructure, health, and logistics. In the renewables arena, a $150 million solar plus storage initiative in Senegal, co-financed by U.S. institutions and local partners, aims to boost electricity access for over 1 million people within 2 years. Meanwhile, agribusiness agreements total around $300 million, including cold chain investments and digital farming collaborations designed to boost yield and reduce post-harvest losses. Fintech is another hotspot. U.S.-African consortiums pledged $200 million to expand mobile payments and financial inclusion for underbanked populations across East and West Africa. Infrastructure deals, about $400 million collectively, span roads, ports, and rail, with a particular focus on enhancing multimodal transit corridors linking landlocked regions to coastal hubs. Health sector investments, reaching $250 million, are ramping up vaccine production and medical supply chains post-pandemic. Logistics drew major interest, with $150 million committed to upgrading warehousing, cold storage, and transport networks, key to connecting producers with markets efficiently. Add to that a range of smaller but impactful deals in education, digital media, and climate resilience, and the summit's total investment easily surpasses $2.5 billion. What makes these sectors so compelling isn't just the capital, it's the focus on solving deep-rooted issues like unreliable electricity, broken food supply chains, and limited healthcare access. Every dollar invested has the potential to transform systems and improve lives, shifting the development narrative for millions across the African continent. In an everyday American tone, this isn't charity, it's smart business that helps folks in Iowa or Texas export better and aids farmers in rural Africa grow more. U.S. strategy and diplomatic threads. Behind the money is a broader U.S. strategy. Historically, American engagement in Africa has fluctuated, waxing and waning with administrations and policy focus. This year, a new push aligns with an increasingly bipartisan consensus. Africa matters, both economically and geopolitically. You've seen this play out recently, even during the Trump years, when trade tension with China sparked calls for alternative partnerships. That moment nudged some U.S. businesses to view Africa as an underdeveloped but emerging stage. Now, under the current administration, these instincts are being institutionalized. Development finance tools, private sector mobilization plans, and diplomatic outreach via the U.S.-Africa Leaders Summit are all showcasing sustained momentum. The summit's $2.5 billion haul didn't happen by accident. It came from years of prep, alignment across agencies, and strategic messaging. U.S. trade representative initiatives, DFC credits, and USAID-backed projects created a foundation that mobilized private capital at scale. And yes, echoes of prior policy moves, especially those associated with the Trump-era focus on America First and diversification, have contributed, even if indirectly. The result? A continuum of engagement, not a policy pivot with each election. And that's exactly what business leaders want: predictability. Investors told me they're encouraged by this level of consistency. The summit reinforces that U.S.-Africa ties aren't a short-term play, they're part of a long-game strategy. In summary, the diplomatic scaffolding has been years in the making, but only now is it paying off in deals that matter. African leadership and ownership. What's often overlooked in the hype about U.S. dollars is the leadership coming from African governments, businesses, and civil society. Summit participants emphasize that these deals reflect African agency, not foreign imposition. In Nairobi, Lagos, and Accra, CEOs are co-leading negotiations, local banks are underwriting projects, ministries are crafting enabling policies. One striking example, a $100 million tech accelerator in Rwanda that matches U.S. equity with national grants, designed to incubate startups for global markets. Another, Ghana's government offering tax incentives and streamlined licensing to attract investors into agritech. Summit panels often echoed one message: Africa is not a monolith. Each country is staging its own strategy, tailored to its strengths, whether it's minerals, cocoa, or software development. That bottom-up approach sends a signal. Success will be measured locally by jobs, innovation, and resilience, not by headlines in DC. It also means risks are shared. When an energy company invests, the local utility has a stake. When a health initiative rolls out, local clinics are co-managing. And that's a big deal because it reduces the chance of deal flop. Again, think like an American entrepreneur. You want local buy-in, knowledge of the terrain, and incentives aligned from day one. Summit participants frequently praised African partners for moving swiftly, cutting red tape, and thinking creatively. These examples are not exceptions. They represent a rising tide of local ownership across deals that total $2.5 billion. The success of this summit isn't dictated by American prestige. It's powered by mutual respect, shared goals, and real collaboration, measuring real impact. When we cut the ribbon, what changes? That's the question running through every stakeholder's mind. These headlines are great, but the bottom line is, how many megawatts installed? How many smallholder farmers reached? How many clinics stocked? The data emerging from the summit gives an early glimpse. The solar initiative in Senegal, for example, is expected to cut energy costs by 20% for local households and small businesses, powering schools and telecom towers. Agritech programs under one of the deals aim to increase farmers' productivity by an average of 30%, translating into hundreds of thousands of additional meals per harvest cycle. In fintech, deal participants report that mobile payment rollouts have already onboarded over 2 million new users under age 30, enabling entrepreneurs to move money securely and access credit. Logging and transport upgrades under infrastructure pacts are reducing truck turnaround times at ports by as much as 25%. Huge when even a few hours of delay can cost exporters thousands. In health, vaccine manufacturing support deals will supercharge local capacity. The result? A shift. Instead of relying on imports, countries can produce doses domestically, cutting months off delivery timelines. The growing emphasis on data-driven monitoring, dashboards, independent audits, community feedback forums is bolstering accountability too. That attracts more capital. Investors tell me they want numbers they can track, metrics they can verify. And the summit's $2.5 billion worth of deals has been explicitly structured around measurable targets. No vague promises. Every agreement comes with KPIs. That kind of rigor is a game changer for both African stakeholders and US policymakers who need to show results. What comes next? So, what's next for this historic summit? First, follow through. Deals are just the beginning. Implementation must stay on track, which means project management offices, joint review committees, and continuous oversight. Agreements include annual progress bonds, and some transactions have deferred payouts tied to achieving benchmarks. Second, scale. U.S. government agencies are now evaluating how to replicate successful models across regional hubs. What worked in Senegal's solar market? Can it be adapted for Tanzania, Rwanda's accelerator? Could a similar platform launch in Kenya or Nigeria? Third, policy alignment. The U.S. Congress is reviewing bipartisan bills aimed at increasing DFC lending authority and making investment tax credits available for U.S. firms investing in sub-Saharan infrastructure. That could supercharge future summits. Fourth, diversifying participants. Past summits featured big banks and multinationals. The next ones will aim to pull in SMEs, women-owned businesses, and diaspora investors who bring both capital and expertise. Another key opportunity: cross-continental partnerships, linking businesses in Egypt with counterparts in Washington State, or South African logistics firms with U.S. port operators. Finally, it's worth circling back to the broader geopolitical context. Arguments that surfaced in past administrations, sometimes reflecting America First instincts, did serve to jolt U.S. engagement in potentially positive ways. Those dynamics, combined with current support, suggest a more resilient, diversified approach to Africa, one rooted not in narrow partisanship but in shared commercial opportunity. Barring unforeseen setbacks, the question isn't whether there will be a summit next year, it's how big it will be, and whether the $2.5 billion headline becomes the floor rather than the high water mark. $2.5 billion in deals, and a clear message: the US is back in the African business game, stronger than ever. The summit's record-breaking success marks a turning point in how both regions see the future: shared growth, bold partnerships, and strategic investment. But is it too little too late, or the start of a real shift? One thing's certain: Africa's voice at the global economic table just got louder. Special thanks to the Africa News Agency for breaking this story. Hit like, subscribe, and drop your thoughts in the comments below.